Okay, I'm going to do some quick checks. All right. All right. So let's check this out. So yeah, I'm doing some live stuff here to research different things that are going on, and I want to make sure that anyone has the opportunity to come in and check me if I'm off base or being unreasonable. So I guess I can start from the beginning. I've gone through a little bit of a paradigm shift in the way that I look at the world lately, and I feel like to an extent that has cost me a bit socially, at least for people that I had affiliated with for a long time. Maybe that's all in my head. Maybe it's not. But I figured, you know what? Why not just come to conclusions on things here in public, do research on them in public, right? And then just leave it open for anyone to basically call in and check me, right? So that's what we're going to do. So today we are looking at the border shenanigans. So, Texas border. Okay. So let's see if we can find a decent article on this and start, because really I don't even know what's going on. I'm walking into this totally blind. Let's see. So this is from 8 days ago. Let's see if I can find one a little bit sooner. This is from an hour ago. All right. Let's see. 25 states with Republican governors sign letter supporting Texas in border control fight. Okay. Through the Border Security Initiative, Operation Lone Star. Texas has implemented physical barriers barring both immigrants and federal agents from accessing the border, which raises legal disputes. Okay, so let's head in here. Let's break this down. Almost all of U.S. Republican senators have signed on a statement backing Texas Governor Greg Abbott in his bitter fight against the federal government over border patrol. The statement released Thursday on the Republican Governors Association website criticized the Biden admin and the state of Texas has a constitutional right to defend itself. I don't know about that one. This week, Texas officials said the Department of Homeland Security sparred over barbed wire along the Rio Grande. The U.S. Supreme Court ruled that federal agents can cut through the razor wire the state installed. Okay, so let's see. Republican Governors Association, 25 governors released the following joint statements. The statement comes as the Biden administration continues to attack Texas. That is completely unhinged language, but okay. And refuses to take action or responsibility at the crisis at the southern border. President Biden and his administration have left Americans and our country completely vulnerable to the unprecedented illegal immigration pouring across the southern border. Instead of upholding the rule of law and securing the border, the Biden administration has attacked and sued Texas for stepping up to protect American citizens from historical levels of illegal immigrants, deadly drugs like fentanyl, and terrorists entering the country. So I think we're already at a little bit of a problem here. U.S. Constitution Supremacy Clause. I think it's what it's called. Supremacy Clause that establishes that federal constitution and federal law generally take precedence over state laws and even state constitutions. So if immigration laws are federal laws, then Texas can't do this, right? We stand in solidarity with our fellow governor, Greg Abbott. The state of Texas is utilizing every tool and strategy, including razor wire fences, to secure the border. Because the Biden administration has abdicated its constitutional compact duties to the states, Texas has every legal justification to protect the sovereignty of our... this I don't think is true. So how would we verify this? Well, so you have the Supremacy Clause, right? So yeah, the first big thing is the Supremacy Clause. State laws are trumped by federal laws. Immigration is specifically under federal jurisdiction, which I think that makes sense to me, because if we allow situations for states to openly defy federal law, we're kind of creating a situation I don't think anyone actually wants to live in, right? Okay. As part of Operation Lone Star, Abbott's $11 billion border security initiative. So Texas Governor Abbott's $11 billion security initiative. Several measures to block migrants from entering the state, including razor wire, large water buoys, right? I'm probably butchering that right there. In the Rio Grande, and building segments of a state border wall based. Okay. On Monday, the U.S. Supreme Court ruled that federal agents can remove the razor wire after the federal government earlier this month sought an emergency ruling allowing it to do so to reach migrants or officers in distress and to patrol the southern border. But the ruling did not seem to deter Abbott, who posted on social saying this is not over. SCOTUS ruling. Okay. What day was Monday? Monday was the 20... Hold on. I've got it here. I want to make sure to include the date in case I am Okay. 1/22, 2024. Ruled that the feds can cut through the razor wire, right? Can remove the razor wire. The ruling did not seem to deter Abbott. Posted on social saying this is not over. Let's see. The Texas Military Department also posted photos on Tuesday of soldiers installing more wire in Eagle Pass. Blah, blah, blah. Okay, so I think... Oh, here we go. Republican governors support Texas's constitutional claim, but do not supply material support. So, invoke the state's constitutional right of self-defense. So, state's constitutional right of self-defense. Is that actually a thing? So this is Second Amendment stuff, according to Washington. Okay, so I don't think I'm going to get anything good on that. Justifying the patrol tactics. Let's see. The U.S. federal constitution relegates immigration law to the... That's what I thought. Abbott and his supporters pointed to two different provisions. Article 4, Section 4 of the Constitution. All right, so Article 4, Section 4 states the United States will guarantee every state a Republican form of government and protect them against invasion and domestic violence. Republican position. All right. Number 2. Article 1, Section 0, Clause 3. Was that a typo? Section 10, Clause 3. I'm just retarded. Okay. So then... Clause 3. No state shall, without consent of Congress, lay any deputy, keep troops, ships of war in times of peace, enter any agreement. Okay. Enter into any agreement or compact with another state or with a foreign power or engage in war unless actually invaded. Okay. So they're using this kind of language of invasion, which I guess I can see. I guess I see it, right? But lately I've been kind of leaning towards that being hyperbole, if I'm being honest. Okay, so basically the United States will guarantee every state a Republican form of government and protect them against invasion and domestic violence. And then argument number 2. And what is this again? Article 1, Section 10. Clause 3. No state shall, without any consent of Congress, lay any duty of tonnage, keep troops, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so states aren't allowed to go to war unless in imminent danger. Unless actually invaded or in imminent danger. Okay. Okay, I'm going to have to chew on that. Abbott and the faction of governors argued the Biden administration has failed to uphold duties in the former, allowing Texas to evade federal guidance in the name of the latter. Instead of upholding the rule of law and securing the border, the Biden administration has attacked and sued Texas for stepping up to protect American citizens from historic levels of illegal immigrants, deadly drugs like fentanyl, and terrorists entering our country. Let's see. Though the letter expressed support of this argument, there are few details about support beyond solidarity. Some signatures. Okay, so citing invasion. They're characterizing this as an invasion. I'm sort of ambivalent. I'm not totally. I don't know, because yeah, so this is where I could see, because really if someone wants to like characterize this as an invasion, I think they're playing heavy on the word invasion, if I'm being honest. It looks like the word invasion, I mean, the word invasion clearly means like a military invasion, right? So I feel like this is a weird use of the word invasion. And I know what they mean by invasion. I have used invasion in this context in the past. But, okay. But yeah, so I guess where I'm hung up is we can't have situations where the federal government can just get defied by a state, because that's chaos. Okay. So I think Shrek posted something here. He said he can't call in, but I can't call, but I feel states should be allowed to protect their borders in unique situations like this. Keep the fence up, allow all of Texas to vote on whether they want to allow them in or a way to change how it's handled, then go forward. That's just my opinion. I do agree going outright against federal law is dangerous territory, but I think the government should be more flexible to the wants and needs of the people in states instead of blanket enforcers of laws voted on by people unaffected by the results, being especially true for border states. Yeah, so I feel like you're probably mostly right on that. I guess where it gets goofy, right, is well, I guess if we back up all the way, it's a weird characterization to say that the Biden admin is like totally like open borders, right? Because they're not. That's like a Republican like talking point that kind of that doesn't seem to know what the word open borders tends to mean. But I also know, let's see. So I guess we have to figure out what is like non-democratic or anti-democratic here, or where it matters more. And so what I mean is like, okay, so let's just even say Biden is completely open borders. So if a democratically elected president is open borders, is the open borders then undemocratic? There's sort of an issue with that, but I don't know. So I guess back to the first part of what you said, Shrek, is, yeah, I feel like states should be allowed to protect their borders in unique situations like this. I'm inclined to agree with you. I do agree with you, but it looks like what the law says is that states can't. But what I don't know is how you can make this true. You know, I feel like states should be allowed to protect their borders in unique situations. I feel like I don't know how you would make this true without creating that chaos situation, right, where states can just completely override federal law. That's goofy to me. But there was something in the news earlier. There was like a border deal, border Ukraine deal. I don't know what it's called. Ukraine. Okay, fair enough. So my understanding of this, and I literally only know anything about this from headlines, is they're trying to work out a deal, more money for Ukraine in exchange for more border security. And of all people on this, Trump is torpedoing it. Let's see. So Johnson warns Ukraine immigration deal likely dead on arrival in House, pledges to impeach Mayorkas. So, okay. So where's the Republican Party in getting this deal, which would then take care of this entire situation, the border problem, right? So if the Republican Party is being offered a deal on taking care of this whole situation in exchange for Ukraine money, which again, I'll get a little more into detail on this in a second because I could be wrong. But then I don't think, I don't know, the Republicans they do stupid shit sometimes, man. Okay, I just need to figure this out. So, in a letter to House Republican Speaker Mike Johnson warned that the immigration deal is under consideration in the Senate may be dead on arrival in his chamber, while also vowing to move forward with plans to impeach Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas. The Republican leader's statement bodes ill for bargaining in the Senate, which is seen as crucial to unlocking GOP support for aid to Ukraine as well as Israel and Taiwan. Democrats and Republicans in the upper chamber have been negotiating for months on an agreement to restrict immigration policy in a bid to keep undocumented migrants from entering the United States. While no compromise has yet been reached, Johnson said today that if rumors about the contents of the draft proposal were true, it would have been dead on arrival in the House anyway. Johnson said he would fully support the effort to impeach Mayorkas, who Republicans have accused of mishandling border security. And so again, not to be like a partisan hack on this shit, but like seriously, this Texas shit gets solved if the Republicans would just take this fucking deal. And it looks like, and again, I could be wrong, but it looks like the entire reason Republicans are not taking this deal is because Trump is telling them to torpedo it. And if Trump is telling them to torpedo the deal, you have to question why. It's purely for political reasons. So okay. So if you're going to cite this, like, if the Republicans are going to cite this, like, what's the word I'm reaching for? Not, I mean, exaggerated is a good word for it, but I don't know, if you're gonna stretch the definition of invasion to this extent, why are you? And yeah, if you're going to characterize this as an invasion and you're going to talk about fentanyl pouring over the border and the country is being invaded and this is an emergency, if you're doing all of this and characterizing the situation this way, why then are you turning down a deal to solve the problem? That tells me you're not actually serious about how, you obviously the Republican Party, they're not serious about how they're characterizing this. Hysterical? Is that the word I'm looking for? Because I mean, I'm not saying that the border situation isn't serious. It's one of my, I would say it's one of my top issues. But like, if you're gonna cite all this, deadly drugs, terrorists, historic levels of illegal immigrants, and terrorists entering the country, so you're citing terrorism to openly defy the federal government, but then you're turning around and letting Trump torpedo your chance at saving that. You can't just vote in opposition to Trump and what he wants, especially when he had, 4 years to fix this issue and didn't. It's weird. Okay, so I guess we can go into Ukraine immigration deal. Statement bargaining in the Senate. Senate is negotiating a deal for increased border security and improved handling of illegal immigrants in exchange for more money for Ukraine. Okay, so let's let's go to just regular old Google. Senate deal on border and Ukraine, risk of collapse as Trump calls it meaningless. A bipartisan Senate deal to pair border enforcement measures and Ukraine aid face potential collapse on Thursday as Senate Republicans grew increasingly wary of an election year compromise that Donald Trump, the likely Republican presidential nominee, says is meaningless. At stake is, hold on. Senate negotiators have been striving for weeks to finish a carefully negotiated compromise on border and immigration policy that is meant to tamp down on the number of migrants who come to the U.S. border with Mexico. But now that negotiations have dragged for weeks, election year politics and demands from Trump are weighing it down. I do not think we should do a border deal at all unless we get everything needed to shut down the invasion of millions and millions of people. So again, he calls it an invasion. But while he was here for 4 whole years, didn't use any of the powers afforded to him for a real invasion to take care of the problem. At stake is a plan that both Joe Biden and Senate Republican leader Mitch McConnell have worked on for months to broker in hopes of cajoling Congress to approve wartime aid for Ukraine. The U.S. has run out of money to supply Ukraine, potentially leaving the country stranded without robust supplies of ammunition and missiles to fend off Russia's invasion. Trump on Thursday ramped up his criticism of the potential compromise, writing in 2 lengthy posts on his social media platform that it would be meaningless in terms of border security and another grift to the radical left Democrats as Biden runs for re-election. So again, keep the invasion, I'm going to put that in air quotes, keep the invasion going so that Sleepy Joe doesn't get a win. Nice. And a large plurality of people want this guy to be a fucking president. Okay. Let's see. What's up? Allow all of Texas to vote on whether they want to allow them in or wait to change how it's handled, then go forward. That's just my opinion. I do agree going outright against federal laws. The former president said the Senate is better off not making a deal, more flexible, even if it means the country will close up for a while. He did not propose alternate policy options. I do agree going outright against federal laws. In a closed-door Republican meeting on Wednesday, McConnell acknowledged the reality of Trump's opposition, that he is the party's likely presidential nominee, and discussed other options, including potentially separating Ukraine and the border. McConnell acknowledged the reality of, according to two people familiar, that he is the party's likely spoke anonymously to discuss the private meeting. Including potentially separating Ukraine and the border. McConnell acknowledged the reality of, according to two people familiar, so the party's likely spoke anonymously to discuss the private meeting. Including potentially separating Ukraine and the border. So reassure the Congress the Republican motion Thursday still personally supports pairing the border and Ukraine. To discuss the private meeting. Including potentially separating Ukraine and the border. So reassure the Congress the Republican motion Thursday still personally supports. So really, this is a Ukraine, McConnell, and Biden thing. Sure the Congress the Republican motion Thursday still personally so really this is a Ukraine McConnell. I think that's the shift that has occurred that he's acknowledging. Okay, Langford said he's been working with a small partisan group and White House officials to try and close out the border deal, but release of the legislation has been held up by haggling over the price of the new policies and continued disagreements over limiting the president's ability to allow people into the country under special circumstances, such as fleeing war and unrest. Has been held up by haggling over the price. We are really focused on making sure we get the bill out and that we get it through the Senate. Into the country under special circumstances, such as fleeing war and unrest, has been held up by haggling over the price. We are really focused on making sure we get the bill out and that we get it working in good faith, according to Biden. We're at a critical moment. Such as fleeing. Got a hard drive to get this done, said South Dakota Senator John Thune, second ranked, working in good faith, according to Biden. We're at a critical moment. Such as fleeing. Got a hard drive to get this done, said South Dakota Senator John Thune, second ranked, working in good faith. Putin prevails in Ukraine, the consequences for Western democracy. Yeah, I feel like this is a bunch of, hysteric vocabulary being used here too. There's a bunch of hysterics too. It's kind of what I'm seeing from both sides on this. I feel like the Republicans are using hysterical language like invasion and historic vocabulary, illegal immigration, and whatever the fuck else. And it's kind of what I'm seeing from both sides on this. Democrats are just turning around and saying, okay, using hysterical language. The Ukraine thing is also historic and dire, and illegal, severe, honest for years, right? So if these two things are so important. It's kind of what I'm seeing from both sides on this. Democrats are just turning around and saying, okay, using hysterical language. Really, this isn't on. I don't know. I can't even really put any of this on the Democrats. If I'm being honest. The more and more I look at this, important. Trump has loomed large over the talks. I guess first skewering American support for Ukraine. I don't know. I can't even really put any of this on the Democrats. If I'm being honest. The more and more I look at this. What date was this? Trump has loomed. This is pretty recent talks. I guess first skewering American support for Ukraine. I don't know. I can't even really put any of this on the Democrats. If I'm being honest. The more and more I look at this. What date was this? Okay. A lot of Republicans have become used to this being just merely a political issue, not an actual policy problem. I can't even really put any of this on the Democrats. If I'm being honest. The more and more I look at this. What date was this?
Okay.
Yeah, a lot of Republicans I agree with this.
Used to this,
And that's hard for them to get over, but there's a big group of Senate Republicans who do not want to solve the problem. Or who do want to solve the problem. Okay. There's a big group of Senate Republicans who do want to solve the problem, and that's hard. Which I believe that. Get over, but there's a big. But I also believe this. A lot of Republicans have become used to this being just merely a political issue and not an actual policy problem. Big group of Senate Republicans who do want to solve the problem. Which I believe that. Which, but I also believe Trump probably falls into that category. A lot of Republicans have become seeking to hold off just merely a political issue. Trump, Republican senators have argued that the policies under discussion would not have an immediate effect on problems at the border, and would even give Trump greater border enforcement authority if he was reelected. Seeking to hold off objections from Trump, Republican senators have argued that the issue will be a live issue, and I think it will be one of the defining issues in the campaign. So we need to do our job here. Border enforcement authority if he was reelected. Seeking to hold off. What else is in here? If we expect him to be able to secure the border, he ought to issue this bill. One of the defining issues in the campaign. Okay. So we need to do our job here. Border enforcement authority if he was reelected. What else is in here? If we expect him to be able to secure the border, he ought to issue this bill. One of the defining issues in the campaign. Okay. So let's see. Border enforcement authority if he was reelected. What else is in here? If we expect him to be able to issue the border, he ought to issue this bill. One of the defining issues in the campaign. Okay. So let's see. If we expect him to be able to secure the border, he ought to be able to see this bill, and he ought to be able to be engaged and say, "Is this going to help me secure the border or not?" Said Rick Scott, a Florida Republican, at a Wednesday news conference. Expect him to be able to secure the border. He ought to be able to see this bill, and he ought to need it. Okay. Is this going to help me secure the border? Well, if he doesn't need it, why didn't he do it 4 years ago? But okay. Wednesday news conference. Senator J.D. Vance, an Ohio Republican, who's a Trump ally, said he spoke with the former president about the deal last week and has expressed worry that it would be, quote, too weak. When it fails, as it will allow the president to blame, quote, unquote, MAGA Republicans for the failure. Former president about the deal last week and has expressed worry that it would be, quote, very weak, or didn't actually do anything. Some Republicans worried walking away from the opportunity to enact border policy could backfire. Republicans for the I'm in this camp. If I was a Republican, this seems like a once in a lifetime thing. Some Republicans, the last 10 Democrats, I think, like compromised on a border deal, right? It was like in the Reagan days. This seems like a once in a lifetime thing. They're retards. The last 10 Democrats, I think, if they back away from this. Like compromise. We were given an opportunity, right? Like in the Reagan days, not to do it. Yeah, I think we could be in serious trouble. It seems like a once in a lifetime thing. They're retards. Last 10 Democrats, if they back away from this. So I'm not really interested. We were given an opportunity, right? Like in the Reagan days, to do it. Yeah, this stuff. What I am interested in is they're retards. SCOTUS ruling, not really interested. States forcing any of this immigration laws. What I am interested in is get to the turkey here. SCOTUS ruling, not really interested. States forcing any of this immigration laws. What I am interested in is I wonder if there's a Wikipedia page on this. SCOTUS. Not really interested. Forcing this immigration laws. What I am interested in is I wonder if there's a Wikipedia page on this. So in 1898. I wonder if there's a Wikipedia page. Child born in the United States, parents of Chinese descent, who at the time of his birth subjects of the Emperor of China, but of okay. Can I just get like what the result was? I'm not really looking to get quite this autistic with it. The Emperor of China, but of okay. Can I just get like what the result was? I'm not really looking to get quite this autistic with it. The Emperor of China, but of okay. Can I just get like what the result was? I'm not really looking to get quite this autistic with it. So this is a recent stuff. Okay. Can I just get like what the result was? I'm not really looking. It's got to be a better breakdown here somewhere. So this is a recent stuff. Okay. Can I just get It's got to be a better breakdown here somewhere. So this is a recent stuff. It's got to be a better breakdown here somewhere. What if we do SCOTUS stuff, rulings on... It's got to be a better breakdown here somewhere. Immigration. What if we do SCOTUS? Oh, here we go. How about this? This is actually more relevant. When have they ruled on the supremacy clause? What if we do SCOTUS? Oh, here we go. How about this? This is actually more relevant. When have they ruled on the supremacy clause? What if we do... Let's see. Oh, here we go. How about this? The Supremacy Clause of the Constitution of the United States establishes the Constitution, federal laws made pursuant to it, and treaties made under its authority constitute the supreme law of the land and thus take priority over any conflicting state laws. Okay. So we do know this. Supremacy Clause of the Constitution of the United States establishes the Constitution, federal laws made pursuant to it, and treaties made under its authority constitute the supreme law of the land and thus take priority over any conflicting state laws. Okay. So we do know this. Supremacy Clause of the Constitution. Federal laws, by definition, must be supreme. If the laws do not function from that position, then they amount to nothing. Noting that a law, at the very meaning of the term, includes supremacy. It is a rule to those whom it is prescribed are bound to observe. This results from every political association. If individuals enter into a state of society, the laws of that society must be supreme, regular of their conduct. If a number of political societies enter into a larger political society, the laws which the latter may enact pursuant to the powers entrusted to it by its constitution must necessarily be supreme over those societies. So Hamilton is probably right. He probably put that way better than I could a minute ago. Entrusted to it by its constitution must necessarily be supreme over those societies. So Hamilton is probably right. He probably put that way better than I could a minute ago. Because yeah, if individuals can just openly defy state laws, if state laws can openly defy federal laws, then you've got put that way better than I could a minute ago. Really, you've got a problem. Yeah, if individuals not really much else just of a way to put that state laws, if state laws can openly defy federal laws, then you've got put that way better than I could a minute ago. Really, you've got a problem. Yeah, if individuals not really much else just of a way to put that state laws, if state laws can existing federal laws, then case law. Really, you've got this actually up here. Not really much else. And relabel this 2024 SCOTUS ruling. Existing federal laws, case law. Really, you've got this actually up here. Not really much else. And relabel this 2024 SCOTUS ruling. Existing federal laws. Okay. Chung versus Freeman. Or this actually. Relabel this 2024 SCOTUS ruling. Apple sucks sometimes. Chung versus Freeman brought to the court when a passenger arriving in California on the Chinese vessel Japan was detained by the Commissioner of Immigration on the charge of being included by a state statute in the cast of lewd and debauched women, Chinese vessel, which require separate bonds from the owner of the vessel that came in by the Commissioner of Immigration on the charge of the Supreme Court ruled against the plaintiff's detention basis that the statutes preempted the federal legislation's ability to regulate the admission of citizens. Okay, so if I'm understanding this correctly, against the plaintiff's detention basis, the federal statutes preempted federal legislation's ability to regulate California, requiring separate. If I'm understanding this correctly, against the plaintiff's detention basis, what would you call this? Separate forms, separate criteria, legislation's ability which require separate bonds from the owner of the vessel. I guess requiring separate documentation. Is a good way to put it. What would you call it? The federal government overruled California on requiring separate documentation, which requires separate bonds from the owner of the vessel. I guess requiring separate documentation.
Citizen
A good way to put it.
into the country.
The federal government overruled California on requiring separate documentation.
Black versus Wilson was brought to the Supreme Court in order to determine the constitutionality of California's Proposition 187, in which the League of United Latin American Citizens argued was preempted by the federal government's authority over the regulation of foreign nationals in America.
The constitutionality of California's
Proposition 187 was meant to assist cooperative efforts undertaken by national and subnational governments
over the regulation of foreign nationals.
to place stricter restrictions on undocumented immigrants for receiving benefits or public services in the state of California. The court decided that only a small portion Proposition 187 was not preempted by the Personal Responsibility and Work Opportunity Reconciliation Act of 1996. So, the court decided that only a small portion v. Wilson. Proposition 187 was not preempted by the Personal Responsibility and Work Opportunity Reconciliation Act of 1996. So, I guess I should just say SCOTUS v. Wilson. Proposition 187 was not preempted by the Personal Responsibility SCOTUS Reconciliation Act of 1996. So, I guess I should just say SCOTUS determined most of California. SCOTUS Prop 187 was unconstitutional because determined most of California. It attempted Prop 287 was unconstitutional because most place stricter restrictions. Attempted Prop 287 was unconstitutional on undocumented place stricter migrants than federal law. Villas at Parkside Partners versus City of Farmers Beach dealt with an ordinance passed by the City of Farmers Branch, not Beach. Ordinance 2952 forced individuals seeking to reside in a rented apartment obtain a license first. Partners versus City of Farmers Beach dealt with an ordinance passed by the City of Farmers with pre-existing federal law, and thus affirmed a lower court's decision. Forced individuals seeking to reside in a rented apartment obtain a license first. Partners versus City of Farmers Beach dealt with an ordinance passed by the City of Farmers pre-existing federal law, and thus affirmed a lower court's decision. So, where does, maybe I'm misunderstanding, but where does the Supremacy Clause come into play on this? Dealt with an ordinance passed by the City of Farmers Branch, Ordinance 2952, forced individuals seeking to reside in a rented apartment need to obtain a license first. Passed by the City of Farmers Branch, Ordinance 2952, forced individuals seeking to reside in a rented apartment. I don't want to get totally sidetracked here. First, passed by the City of Farmers Branch, Ordinance 2952. But this just looks like let's. I don't want to get totally sidetracked here. First, City of Farmers Branch, Ordinance 2952. But this just looks like okay. I guess this probably isn't too important, but okay. So we've got a couple of different cases of the Supreme Court saying no, states cannot. I guess this probably isn't too important. These seem like they're immigration related too. We've got a couple of different cases of the Supreme Court. So it looks like you can't do that. Saying no, as far as treaties. I guess this probably isn't too important. These seem like they're immigration related too. We've got a couple of different cases of the Supreme Court. Cannot pass. Looks like you can't do that. Okay. As far as treaties. I guess this probably isn't too important. These seem like they're immigration related too. Citing the Supremacy Clause to be unconstitutional to the extent that it purported to enlarge federal or original jurisdiction of the Supreme Court beyond that permitted by the Constitution. Okay. Citing the Supremacy Clause. Supreme Court held that the Supremacy Clause and the judicial power granted in Article 3 or original jurisdiction is that Article 3 by the Constitution. We have this here somewhere. Article 1. Okay. Do any one of these pertain to Article 1? Clause and the judicial power granted in Article 3. Is that Article 3?
None. Okay.
We have this here somewhere. Article 1. Okay. Do any one of these pertain to Article 1
or Clause 3?
Power granted in Article 3. Is that Article 3?
None. Okay.
We have this here somewhere.
What about Article 4?
Do any one of these pertain to Article 1
or Clause 3?
Power granted in Article 3. Is that Article 3?
None. Okay.
Martin versus Hunter's lease.
Article 4.
Do any one of these Supreme Clause and Article 3 give the Supreme Court ultimate power to review state court decisions. Okay, that's court stuff. Court found that the state had the power to tax a federally incorporated institutions. That's tax-based. State courts cannot issue rulings that contradict the decisions of federal courts, citing the Supremacy Clause. Court found that the state had the power to tax a federally incorporated institutions. That's tax-based. This appears relevant. State courts cannot issue rulings that contradict the decisions of federal courts. Supreme Court held that under Article 3 of the Constitution, federal courts have the final jurisdiction in all cases. This appears relevant. State courts cannot issue rulings that contradict the decisions of federal courts. Supreme Court held that under Article 3 of the Constitution, federal courts have the final jurisdiction in all cases. Pennsylvania versus Nelson. Struck down the Pennsylvania Sedition Act, which made advocating the forceful overthrow of the government a crime. Supreme Court held that under Article 3 of the Constitution, federal courts have the final jurisdiction. Interesting for a different conversation, I guess. Struck down the Pennsylvania Sedition Act, school desegregation, forceful overthrow of the government a crime. The state statute is void to the extent that it actually conflicts with valid federal statute. Forceful overthrow of the government a crime. It means that a state law will be found to violate the Supremacy Clause when either of the following two conditions or both exist. Compliance with both federal and state is impossible. State law stands as an obstacle to the accomplishment and execution of full purposes of Congress. So this seems relevant to compliance with both valid, even though this doesn't seem immigration related, because again, if Texas is tearing the accomplishment and execution of full purposes or putting up their own wall, right, to compliance with both valid, even though this doesn't seem immigration related, because again, if Texas is tearing the accomplishment and execution of full purposes or putting up their own wall, right, to, so then let's, even though this doesn't seem immigration related, because again, if Texas organize this a little bit, or putting up their own wall, right, the numbers back in, let's, Apple needs hotkeys for this shit, okay, organize this a little bit, or putting up their own wall, right, the numbers back in, let's, Apple needs hotkeys for this shit, okay. Well, seems like this is really straightforward, actually. Even though it feels gross and conservatives might not like it. Like this is yeah, really you can't just actually use hyperbole to even though cloud the definition of invasion when conservatives might not invasion like clearly meant like military. Really you can't just invasion use hyperbole to I understand the definition of invasion when feeling of calling the southern border situation an invasion like military, but you can't just invasion use hyperbole. It's I understand not like people are coming over on behalf feeling of like another government or another state, like right? So you can't just invasion use hyperbole. It's yeah, not like people are coming over on behalf. I mean, I guess what this kind of shows is that you need to go or another state to the federal level to figure this stuff out, and not the state level. Yeah, so people who are upset by this, I mean, I guess what this kind of shows is that you need to go should definitely to the federal level to figure this stuff out, and not vote in a federal election.
Yeah.
So people who
are
are try to
upset
square this
by
away,
this,
or very least put pressure on the people who are in their
should
districts now.
definitely to the federal level to figure this stuff out.
Yeah, I guess that's about it. I have to get ready for some work stuff here, actually, in a few minutes. So,
put pressure on the people who are in their districts
yeah,
now. Definitely,
it was great hanging.